Buongiorno, ciao, and welcome to Sorrento in Campania in Italy. It is very hot. Now, when I was booking, well, I wasn't booking this holiday, but when I knew that I was going to Sorrento for holiday, I wanted to check out the rail network. And according to the Telegraph, this is Italy's worst rail network, the Circumvesuviana, which literally means around Mount Vesuvius. There's a train behind me. Today I'm going to go to Naples and then I'm going to go back again, and we're going to see just how bad is this rail network. Now the train leaves in 4 minutes. I better get on. I think I'm standing the whole way there. The train looks very busy. Let's go to Naples and back. So yes, the Circumvesuviana has 6 different lines radiating out of Napoli Port and Alana station, stretching for 142 kilometres. Today we'll be travelling on 2 of these such lines, the blue and green lines. The railway itself dates back from 1884, when several narrow gauge lines and tramways were constructed before, in the early 20th century, several lines were upgraded to the same narrow 950mm gauge, electrified at 500 volt DC, and extended. After the war, the railway was once again rebuilt due to war damage and the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 1944. The line to Sorrento was finally constructed, taking over a former tramway, with the current 6 lines all being completed by 1948. In the 70s and 80s, further reconstruction works were undertaken, including raising platforms for the new FE220 trains. It's currently owned and ran by the EAV company, who are the main provider of public transport in the Campania region. The Circumvesuviana operates as a commuter rail line, with 96 stations, with most lines offering a half-hourly frequency. The line from Sorrento to Naples is the longest, at 68 minutes, calling at 35 different stops. The network currently has 3 different types of rolling stock: the FE220 units dating from 1979, the T21 units dating from 1989, and the ETR211 MetroStar units dating from 2009. In today's video, we'll go on 2 of these, the FE220 and the MetroStar units, although I have been on the T21 units previously, so I can shed some light on what those trains are like also. Currently, EAV are in the process of receiving 56 Stadler ETR300 trains, which will replace some of the oldest units on the Circumvesuviana. Currently 3 have been delivered, with testing underway, and they are due to enter service by the end of 2025. So then, why is the Circumvesuviana one of the worst rail networks in Italy? Well, the answer is pretty simple: a complete lack of investment. Most of the trains are well over 40 years old, with no air conditioning. The stations have been seemingly left to rot, with graffiti all over the network. The services are also unreliable, with many stories of people being stuck in the several lengthy tunnels along the network for several hours due to breakdowns. There's also several abandoned stations which have been closed due to lack of passenger demand, which we'll look at a little later. The Telegraph article, which I'll link in the description, talks about how the trains have leaky roofs, and a time where a bathtub on the line stopped all the trains. A Facebook page with 245,000 followers shows just how bad things are, including a dot matrix screen, which has been stuck on the testing phase for 30 years. The page also makes fun of the abandoned stations on the line, which really should still be open. And as I'm writing this script, a train has just caught fire on the Sorrento line, demonstrating just how poor and unreliable the service is, with the Facebook page posting updates about the services. I'll leave the link to the page in the description below, so you can give it a look for yourself. We'll start on the FE220 type of train from Sorrento to Naples, calling at many intermediate stops, one such being Pompeii Scavi for the Pompeii archaeological site, before continuing to Naples Garibaldi station. Our service left a few minutes late at 5 minutes past 10, with journey time being around 1 hour and 10 minutes. The train was packed. It was a 10 AM departure, so many tourists were on board, heading to Pompeii or Naples. The trains themselves feel really old, and have had little work on them since their construction in the late 70s. They, of course, have no aircon, which for swelteringly hot Italy is not ideal, and have plastic chairs. The ride quality was beyond terrible, and they felt like an electric pacer. The service felt very relaxed in terms of safety standards. The guard just opened and closed the doors from our door without really checking the platform. On the line to Sorrento, there are 3 abandoned stations, all of which still appear in the in-carriage diagrams. 2 of these, Scrio and Pozzano, were open until the mid-2010s. Both were only open for the summer months, serving nearby seaside resort, but both closed due to lack of funding for maintenance, despite both being busy stations during the summer. To continue our relaxed safety standards trip, we stopped at one of these abandoned stations, Scrio, and opened the doors to let on some EAV engineers, something which I believe would never happen in the UK with our very strict safety standards. Shortly after these 2 abandoned stations, there's a third, called Castellamare Termostazione. This station closed much earlier, in the 1990s, due to low passenger demand, and the building can still be seen visible on Google Street View.
One thing you'll get used to me saying is stopping. The Circumvesuviana services stop a lot at signals. We stopped quite a lot in tunnels for no apparent reason, as they are all single track. I'm not sure what we were waiting for, or if this is the train breaking down, or the signals just being on red. We also waited at many stations, with many of them being passing loops. The line to Sorrento is mostly single track until Torre-Annunziata, a junction station we'll be visiting later. Although they are currently upgrading the line in conjunction with the new Stadler trains, this was all being completed when I visited in July. One of these stations, via Nocera, was being completely resited, and you could see the new station out of the window. It's good to see investment on the line, but benefits weren't being reaped just yet. As I alluded to earlier, I was indeed standing that whole way to Naples, although some people did get off at Pompeii Scavi, one of the busiest stations on the line for obvious reasons. The actual scenery on the line is pretty nice. You get a lot of countryside views, but a lot of it is quite suburban, and is inner city Naples. Soon though, we were on the approach to Naples itself, as we skipped most of the stops past Pompeii. Naples Garibaldi, although not the terminus of Circumvesuviana, is the biggest station in Naples, and has onwards connections to Trenitalia services, the metro and tram stops. So let's join me at Garibaldi for my thoughts on this first Circumvesuviana trip.
Well, I survived, I guess, is what I need to say. That train was very busy, very old, I'm very hot, and I had to stand the whole way. So, not brilliant. The train was late by about 10 minutes, we just kept on stopping randomly. It's all very casual, it's not like the guy who was guarding the doors did there's no signal bell or anything, it's just got a button to open the door and a button to close them all. The train's very old, they're very graffitied. Bit like the Bakerloo line basically. But yeah, I'm going to have a day here in Naples and then I'm going to come back to you when I head back to Sorrento. We're going via another stop, so we're going to go on 2 trains back to Sorrento. Hopefully we're going to go on a different type of train. There's 3 different types of trains. Hopefully we can go on all 3 of them. Here at Napoli Garibaldi, which is the main station. They go over to another station to terminate, but this one's the main one with all the trains and stuff. And it's very busy, so I'll see you back here in about 5 hours time. Welcome to Naples. This is the terminus. I think it's Naples Porta something. Terminus of the Circumvesuviana.
So yes, Porta Nalana station opened in 1891 and is the terminus of the Circumvesuviana. The station was originally just called Napoli Station, but gained the Porta Nalana suffix in 2003 to distinguish it from other stations in Naples. The current station building dates from 1975, although it has received a facelift in recent years. Currently the station also houses the EAV head offices, but we don't have too long to dwell though, as I'm about to go on a train bound for Poggiomarino, where I'll leave at Torre-Annunziata to change for a train back to Sorrento. The line to Poggiomarino, apologies for my pronunciation, is the main commuter line on the Circumvesuviana, with the trains calling at every station along the way. It is the same line as services to Sorrento travel on, at least until Torre-Annunziata, where the line junctions off, but the Sorrento services skip many stops along the way. The train was a 3-car metro-style unit, which dates back from the late 2000s. I'm unsure if these trains have aircon or not. I went on one a few days prior to this trip, when I went to Pompeii, and the unit did have aircon, but this one definitely did not. Regardless, this journey wasn't that great, despite having a better ride quality than the FE220s. As it was a peak time train, it was extremely crowded, with people returning home after a day's work in Naples, with the train becoming full and standing by Garibaldi. The service did become more and more crowded, which surprised me given the fact that I thought people would be leaving Naples, rather than leaving the urban areas surrounding the city. I unfortunately then did not get to show the quite comfy seats that these trains have. As I alluded to earlier, I have been on these trains before, and when I went on it to Pompeii, the train was practically empty, and the seats were really comfy, compared to the other trains anyway. Unlike the Sorrento service, we stopped at Ercolano station, which is the closest one to Herculaneum, the better preserved but smaller version of Pompeii. The whole line feels a bit like travelling back in time 40 years, with most stations not having any information screens, graffiti covering every available wall, and everything just feels run down and it needs some TLC. Every train seemed to have graffiti on it, and everything just felt old. About an hour later, we arrived at Torre-Annunziata, the junction for trains to Sorrento. Another packed train, another bad journey, and more urban Italian scenery. Nothing really to shout home about.
Fatto sta che cercando allora io ci siamo, tra 5 o 6 settimane io ti chiamo tutti i
Made it to Torre-Annunziata. I think we were 2 minutes late. The train was extremely busy, as seems to be all the Circumvesuviana trains. There was no aircon. It was very hot. Although I got a good view of Vesuvius out of the window. Now I'm going to change over here at wherever it is, Annunziata, which is basically the junction between the different lines. So I'm going to change here and then go to Sorrento. There is a lot of construction work behind me. Platform 6 seems to be closed for rebuilding work or something. They are doubling the whole line all the way to Sorrento, some of it's single track. So there are major upgrades going underway, which is good to see, because oh boy, does this line need it. That was, I think, the newest of the trains. They have ordered some new, I don't know if you can see me, I'm very dark on screen. They have ordered some new Stadler trains, but I'm not sure what the progress is of them, and they're definitely not in service now. But those are the Metro styles, I think, or something like that. They're okay. Here's platform 2. To take us to Sorrento was very echoey. So far though, the Circumvesuviana isn't too good.
After a 15-minute wait, another FE220 train arrived to take me back to Sorrento. However, we should have a little look at the final train which runs on the Circumvesuviana, the T21s. These units were built between 1989 and 1993, and there are currently 35 of them in service. The units have received a refurbishment since 2019, including a new livery and refreshed interiors, with modern LED lighting and new information screens. The final journey was arguably the best of the day, as I actually got a seat. The plastic seats are terrible though, and I think the ride quality was actually worse sat down. You felt every tiny vibration that went through the train. It is literally like an electric pacer. Luckily, these are soon to be replaced by the aforementioned Stadler ETR 300 trains, which will hopefully improve services across the network. Once again, the service included many random stops in the middle of nowhere, meaning we were slightly delayed. However, the doubling of the track and further infrastructure enhancements, including the recycling of the whole network by Bombardier, should improve reliability and allow for more trains to run on the line. Currently, the line from Sorrento has a roughly 2 trains an hour frequency, but some hours there is just the 1 train. It's also worth mentioning the Campania Express, which is a special tourist-only train, which costs double the normal price. It uses the more modern Metro-style trains, with air conditioning, whilst also providing a safer experience, with more staff on board. The express service is rather expensive, and is around €8 for one way, although it might be a good option if you are a tourist. As we're talking about prices, I might as well talk about the price of today's journeys. Now, I got a return from Sorrento to Naples, and they don't actually give you return tickets. They just give you single tickets, which cost €4.50, and give you access on the line on the Circumvesuviana. I don't think there's too much price euros. I think it was €3.50 to Pompeii from Sorrento, and about €1 more to Naples, which is pretty decent value. It seems as though all public transport in the EU is much cheaper than here in the UK, and the Circumvesuviana certainly follows that trend. The actual network itself is known for pickpockets, but I personally felt relatively safe on board, even with an expensive camera out the whole time, and standing quite close to the doors, which we were advised against doing in case somebody stole my phone just before the door shut. Anyway, we were soon back on the approach to Sorrento. The station has around 5 platforms, although with a just half-hourly service, I'm not sure it needs all those 5. The station was always busy when I went, and the actual town of Sorrento itself is, well, a tourist town, hence why I was there. It's a nice place, and I would recommend visiting if you wanted to visit Italy. Anyway, let's join myself back at Sorrento for a roundup of whether the Circumvesuviana truly is the worst rail network in Italy.
So, back at Sorrento where we started. Hopefully you can see me on my viewfinder. I can't see myself. How was that train? Well, we got one of the old ones again. They're not nice, but we got a seat. They're just not good trains. They're very hot. It's like a pacer, but worse because you're in Italy and you know it's hot and there's no aircon and it's just as bumpy. I mean, it is electric, but yeah, they're not good things. So we've been on 3 Circumvesuviana trains. I think we haven't done the whole fleet today. I have in other days. They're not, the other trains aren't as good. I did go on one of the nice Campania Express trains, which was running a different diagram, and that one does have aircon and is very nice. But yeah, the rest of the trains, the Povo trains for the general public, they're not very nice. But hopefully they get some new trains, and hopefully all these infrastructural upgrades come to fruition and help with the running of the Circumvesuviana. I think every train's been late as well, so reliability isn't great. Regardless, though, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It definitely hasn't been the best that I've made, but it's quite difficult when you don't really know what you're going to expect and you don't really know much about the railway that you're on. But I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. Is it Italy's worst railway? Perhaps. I mean, I haven't been on them all, but this one isn't good. It's definitely one of the worst railways I've been on, and that says a lot. I've been on quite a lot of UK railways. This one is bad. I mean, just look at the trains. I mean, they're just horrible and old and graffitied. They don't care. Italy they don't have pride in their trains like Britain do. And even if Britain's trains are late and whatever, they're not as bad as that, that's for sure. I hope you enjoyed though. If so, like, subscribe. Check out my membership in the description below. And once again, thanks for watching. I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.